This is the fourth in a series of videos describing how it is possible to go beyond the film's surface narrative and utilize all elements of the film to decipher a film language that can relate Mulholland Drive to David Lynch's devotion to Transcendental Meditation, which he associates with what he describes as the unified field of consciousness. In previous videos, I described how meditation principles can be connected to some basic Eastern philosophical concepts found in Buddhism and other Eastern philosophical teachings. There are two basic principles to be aware of that can help to open the door to this interpretation. The first is the repeating cycle of desire leading to suffering, and the second involves non-physical spiritual reality versus physical material illusion as a philosophical concept related to what is called Maya in Eastern philosophy. Enlightenment, happiness, peace, contentment, these are all non-physical mental states of mind that we as humans typically attempt to temporarily satisfy through the physical material world, only to repeat the cycle and never achieve a more permanent state of contentment or happiness, and confusing our self-centered desires for love. It reflects what might be imagined as a wrong direction in life, unaware of being on a path that will always lead to some form of suffering. A focus on inner spiritual enlightenment will bring better results with more happiness, peace, love, and other positive outcomes. The film can be perceived as abstractly using characters interacting within a symbolic mental landscape to represent psychological activities occurring deep within the subconscious mind. It's an unenlightened mind that exists in a recurring cycle of desire and suffering, portraying a reflection of human ignorance, confusion, and damage resulting when seeking to satisfy self-centered desires over the deeper inner spiritual needs within. Now, imagining the characters as little people within our head is a way that can help to perceive this perspective, which can open a door to lead to a deeper and more fulfilling understanding. As described in the previous videos, from this perspective, the first clue refers to the credits that come before the jitterbug montage and relates to the darkness coming before enlightenment of the first credit, Alan Sardé Presents. Most viewers considering the clue seem to ignore the first credits and focus on the credits coming after the camera moves into the red pillow. The video in the second clue deals with both the physical appearance of the red lampshade and the sequences surrounding the appearances of the red lampshade and describe an interpretation of an abstract representation of inner subconscious mental communication of a call of desire coming from Laura Herring's characters. This video will explore the third clue. Can you hear the title of the film that Adam Kesher is auditioning actresses for? Is it mentioned again? The title, The Sylvia North Story, spoken during Blonde Camilla Rhodes' audition, is barely audible and easily overlooked as background chatter, in stark contrast to its relative meaningful value. Just as with the first clue of this interpretation, one aspect of this clue is perhaps Lynch may be informing us to be aware of the many little seemingly insignificant details which may be connected to reveal something deeper. These details are right in front of us, right in front of our eyes, but require a higher level of attention to perceive. Being cognizant of the signs in the film can be further related to the signs in our lives and relate to mindfulness in Buddhism, that is, being conscious and aware. This clue calls our attention to the film within the film, symbolically another way of imagining perceptions as being like a film within the mind. It's unreal, right?
It's unreal, right? Yeah.
An illusion that we might imagine as a kind of artificial reality, perhaps to deceive ourselves though we know inside that it is unreal. In Buddhism, this can relate also to the Maya, the concept of an illusion or veiling of the true self, for which a film can become a wonderful metaphor. The film title mentioned is The Sylvia North Story. We hear it spoken as blonde Camilla Rhodes is auditioning for Adam, just before she begins lip-syncing the song I've Told Every Little Star, a song about unfulfilled love. We hear it spoken again at the dinner party when Diane says she met Camilla on the set of the Sylvia North Story. One thing this does is to inform the viewer that Adam was initially directing the film, but a different director, Bob Booker, who auditioned Betsy, directed the same film with a different Camilla Rhodes. This can represent how choices and decisions made can lead elsewhere to unanticipated results. Each bad action can have a wide-reaching unintended negative consequence, and this is also depicted when Joe Messing shoots Ed in the head. Ed's office can suggest a representation of how the rather unkept, disorganized mind might appear artistically. Recall in a previous video the arch used to symbolize the head, initially appearing framing back of head man, as described in the credits, who is in the chain call. And the arch appears here also at Ed's office. And Ed rhymes with head.
Oh, man.
Their scene also can represent artistically the term to put it out of your head and don't think about it, when the camera shows a small piece of brain matter at the end of Ed's strands of hair. Now, instead of being true to his inner being and retaining control, Adam surrenders to desire and makes self-centered choices that lead to suffering. Adam, as the director within the mind, represents the part of the mind that directs, makes decisions and choices, and in this case, chooses the wrong direction, at least as related to the theme of this interpretation. And that results in the happiness represented by Betty leaving and becoming the misery of Diane. Had the mind made the love connection between Adam and Betty, as their eyes meet and deeply connect, the result could have been a positive direction instead of a negative direction the film presents. But Adam has submitted to a dark power of desire that is represented by the powerful, unsatisfied Castiglione brothers, and chooses blonde Camilla, after which, sequentially in the film, Betty then runs away from her opportunity to be true to the total inner being, to be recognized as a great actress, regardless of material success, to become a symbol of enlightenment. But now she runs to Rita, the symbol of desire, who will ultimately lead her to the club to experience confusion and emotional pain. The interpretation is that part of the mind, symbolized by Adam, directed the mind to choose a self-centered physical desire for material world success over the non-physical inner being.
Care about the good life.
The good life instead of a good life, which resulted in happiness slipping away and disappearing before changing into the dark, suffering experience of Diane. Sequentially, Adam chooses Camilla, and then Betty chooses Camilla, who had been pretending to be Rita. Betty says to Rita, as they embrace, the line, "I'm in love with you." She says it twice. She does not say, "I love you." And this is important because being in love is self-centered and led by emotion, possessiveness, obsession, and infatuation, rather than the selfless act of love for another that "I love you" suggests. Symbolically, the mind, with Betty as a mental symbol of happiness within the mind, is unaware that the mind has succumbed to physical desire and has chosen a path or road, as Camilla's last name Rhodes can suggest, that will result in suffering, confusion, and pain shown at the club, and happiness will be gone, symbolized by Betty being gone. It is selfish desire confused as love. Now, I have come to consider Sylvia North to be a representation of an unseen character who is symbolizing a universal viewer's mind, just as we might imagine a film playing inside our own head and consider what is influencing the direction of our personal life film. The name Sylvia North might further suggest the 1965 film Sylvia that starred Carol Baker. It tells the life story of a Sylvia, but a Sylvia West, a poor, abused girl who prostitutes herself in a desire to be materially successful, and eventually becomes engaged to an enormously wealthy man in California. But she ends up falling in love with the poor private investigator who has been hired by her rich fiancé to uncover her background, which has been unknown. She realizes that true love has more value and is more valuable than material wealth, and she leaves the wealthy businessman. Unlike Sylvia North in Mulholland Drive, Sylvia West evolves to a higher level of consciousness and could symbolize in Mulholland Drive a different direction, west instead of north, and becoming enlightened. I will mention, I think Carol Baker may have some other references in Mulholland Drive as well, including the line, "Don't drink all the Coke," which I believe may reference Carol Baker's film Baby Doll. And Carol Baker's life and career are interesting and may have certain comparisons to Mulholland Drive. And her film Something Wild, regarding spiritually evolving, is another film that I like to connect to Mulholland Drive and David Lynch. Now, the concept of the direction of life resulting from choices made is a key theme in this interpretation. And the north direction implied by the name Sylvia North can suggest the northern or upper conscience that is unaware of the deeper subconscious. Here, the film Sylvia North's story, we never see or know much about Sylvia or who she is, perhaps representing a lack of awareness of the inner subconscious mind where the characters in the film exist. Sylvia North can represent the upper levels of the mind that remain on the surface, consciously unmindful to the deeper mental sublayers the film can portray. This can also be reflected by the character Aunt Ruth, who we see departing with heavy baggage, a symbol of mental baggage used in the film, presumably heading off, pun intended, to Canada, directionally suggesting up or north, symbolically the upper outer regions of the mind, where we might typically exist in a daily unenlightened life, and are consciously unaware of what is occurring deep within the Southern California world or subconscious, though still experiencing some form of mental distress due to ignorance. This could result in a spiritual damage to the inner being, perhaps experienced as a symbolic warning in a dream, which is never clearly understood and goes unheeded. And this relates again to the Maya, living a life in the illusion of the physical material world, and perhaps bound to illusion, as the character credited as playing Aunt Ruth implies. Note the vines growing on the exterior walls of Havenhurst that can be suggestive of the neuron pathways of the mind, which can become an artistic symbol of mental communication. One might even imagine the windows and doorways appearing as a face. And there are other images used throughout the film that can further reinforce and suggest similar artistic representations of this mental communication process. Previously, I described Aunt Ruth as representing the absent-mindedness mental aspect within the mind that is unaware of being caught in a cycle of desire and suffering, and is ignorantly abusing the inner self, as related to Eastern philosophical concepts of desire leading to suffering. There is really more to be discussed about Aunt Ruth in other videos in this series that we will get into. And the next video in this series will discuss clue number 4. But even now, hopefully, perhaps some viewers can begin to recognize this approach on how to perceive the symbolic language of the film that can be related to David Lynch's interest in abstract artistic expression, as well as his devotion to the practice of transcendental meditation. There is a richness that can appear from this level once you dive within to go beyond the physical world narratives of a failed Hollywood actress to what can become a meaningful and enlightening experience.